The exchange wrapped up rather abruptly when News Nation's Katie Pavlich cut short her discussion with commentator Brian Tyler Cohen right after he challenged her views on the latest Supreme Court decision that significantly weakened the Voting Rights Act. From the outset, Pavlich attempted to paint gerrymandering as a tactic employed solely by Democrats, portraying Republicans as helpless bystanders caught in the crossfire. Yet this narrative doesn't hold up under scrutiny. In truth, Republican-led efforts to redraw district lines have reshaped the political landscape in places like Texas, Florida, Ohio, North Carolina, Georgia, Wisconsin, and across much of the South. While she highlighted the lack of Republican representation in New England, states such as Maine, New Hampshire, and Massachusetts, Pavlich seemed to gloss over or ignore similar dynamics playing out in Republican strongholds when Cohen brought them up. This raises an important point. If gerrymandering truly undermines fair representation for voters everywhere, why wouldn't Republicans back a comprehensive national prohibition on the practice, especially now that they hold significant governmental authority? Back in 2021, the Freedom to Vote Act proposed exactly that, a nationwide end to partisan map-drawing shenanigans. Every Democrat in Congress supported the measure, but not a single Republican did. Today, with Republicans in control, there's been no meaningful push from their side to address this issue, suggesting that the practice serves their interests too well to abandon. It's easy to decry unfairness when it disadvantages you, but far harder to fix it when it delivers advantages. Pavlich then defended the Supreme Court's recent ruling by arguing that creating districts with race in mind amounts to racism. However, a closer look at history reveals a different story. The Voting Rights Act emerged as a direct counter to systematic efforts by states to weaken the electoral influence of black voters through tactics like cracking, splitting concentrated minority communities across multiple districts to diminish their collective power and deny them meaningful representation. Ensuring that black citizens have a fair shot at electing representatives who reflect their interests isn't about favoritism. It's about correcting deep-seated injustices. The real discrimination lies in stripping away that influence, a pattern seen in the pre-1965 era and alarmingly resurfacing today in 2026. Labeling protective measures as racist while ignoring the underlying discrimination strains credibility and reveals a selective blindness to the facts. As Cohen noted during their conversation, this very issue of voter dilution through racial gerrymandering prompted the original passage of the Voting Rights Act in 1965. That's also why lawmakers repeatedly reinforced and updated it over the decades. In 1970, 1975, 1982, 1992, and as recently as 2006. The unfortunate reality is that racial prejudices haven't simply vanished, making these safeguards as relevant as ever. The swift actions taken by southern states mere days after the court's decision only confirm this troubling continuity. Consider the rapid responses. In Louisiana, the governor declared a state of emergency, not to tackle flooding, economic woes, or crime, but to halt congressional primaries and facilitate the elimination of districts that provide black representation. The planned redrawing could wipe out at least one such district. Alabama's Governor Kay Ivey quickly called a special legislative session to revive a previously invalidated gerrymandered map, which now stands a strong chance of surviving thanks to the ruling. This could erase the state's 2 black opportunity districts. Tennessee's Governor Lee has initiated a special session as well, aiming to dismantle the state's sole black opportunity district. Meanwhile, in South Carolina, GOP leaders are urging the governor to convene lawmakers to redraw maps and remove the district represented by Jim Clyburn, the state's only black opportunity seat. Let's break it down plainly. If your position is that dispersing black voters across overwhelmingly conservative white districts, thereby neutralizing their ability to secure responsive representation, is acceptable, and that any deliberate effort to preserve their political voice equates to racism, then it's clear who is truly advancing discriminatory outcomes here. In the end, Republicans are demonstrating right before our eyes the precise reasons the Voting Rights Act was enacted decades ago. Their aggressive moves to limit representation for black Americans highlight the urgent necessity not only for fresh, robust voting rights legislation, but also for structural changes like expanding the Supreme Court to prevent immediate invalidation of such protections. We've allowed this lingering shadow of the Jim Crow period to persist for far too long, with conservative forces consistently working to sideline black and brown communities. What we require now is bold, decisive leadership from Democrats, ready to move beyond half measures and mere balance, committing instead to outright victory in defending democratic principles. Central to that must be reforming the court so that a handful of ideologically driven justices cannot dictate the fate of the entire nation. At its core, the challenge stems from an unaccountable judicial branch poised to block progressive advancements at every turn, including essential voting protections. It's time to set aside any undue reverence for the current setup, recognizing that the number 9 for justices isn't etched in the Constitution itself. If the situation were reversed and Republicans saw a need to adjust the court's size, they wouldn't hesitate for a moment. Relying solely on defensive strategies won't lead to success. The heated exchange captured in that clip illustrates how certain voices on the right contort logic to rationalize their relentless pursuit of dominance, even at the expense of sidelining vast segments of the population. At heart, this approach reveals an opposition to core democratic values. The path forward demands that we seize the initiative, mirroring the proactive stance Republicans have maintained throughout much of the recent past. Only by pushing back assertively do we stand a chance of preserving and strengthening our democratic institutions while opportunities remain. In reflecting on this episode, one can't help but wonder, when those in power prioritize partisan advantage over equitable representation, what does it say about the health of our democracy? It invites each of us to consider whether true fairness in elections can ever be achieved without vigilant, courageous action from all sides.